Hello future tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
Now to create such a workflow, what we need to do is we basically go to admin and there you have an option called as workflows. And within that, when you click on workflows, you'll be able to see that here. What you do is you basically give a name to the workflow and then you decide whether it is serial or parallel. If it is serial, it goes to one user first and then to the second approver. If it is parallel, it goes to both together. If your manager and senior manager both have to approve the request, rather than waiting for your manager to approve, your serial manager can also approve. Right? In that sense, we'll call it parallel. If it has to be approved by one person and only then the second can approve, it will be called a serial. Now again, the reason why I tell you usually that Saviynt is a much easy tool to understand and work on is, if you see, everything here is based on UI. If we would have looked at any other tool, those would require creating Java files, deploying it, creating some composites. Those are called as a composite and that's how the workflow takes place. The problem is in that case, if you want to manipulate it, change it anyhow, you'll have to recompile the code. Make sure there are no problems as such. Make sure it is not contradicting with any other workflow which has already been deployed, and only after the deployment you'll be able to see whether it is working how it is expected to work or not. Whereas in case of Saviynt, what you basically do is, if you see, here you have all the tabs predefined. In terms of Linux, if you know, you have a role called as admin and then you have super admin and then you have different type of accesses on different files: read, write access, only read access, right? Obviously everyone, you, I and everyone can log into that Linux machine, but specific operations can be done only by specific people. And for that you need certain access right. That is the type of access that is present in cloud applications as well. In Salesforce, there is a license called as free license. There is a license called as customer representative. There is a license called a call. Basically, there are different admin license. Obviously, depending upon the license that has been attached to that user, what can that user do will be decided. If you want that, when I request access to, let's say, admin entitlement within Salesforce, I already have a Salesforce account, but I want access to admin, license right. That is called as access right because I'm requesting access for a certain entitlement. These are the kind of tasks that you can use. You have access approval required. You have access approval not required. You have manager's manager approval. I was telling you right, your senior manager might need to approve a request. Rather than you being configuring this separately, you can configure this at once, right? You just need to drag and drop. You drag start, you drag action event, you drag access approval. And then if there is any escalation, you can configure that any comment that you want and then you end it. Even in the last discussion, I was telling you this, that defining this is really easy. Basically, from the left side, you drag and drop the start pane. Then you drag and drop, let's say, manager approval. The manager will have to take an action. If the user requests a certain application, this workflow is triggered. The access for that particular application request will go down to the manager of that user. That manager can either accept the request, basically approve it. If he approves it, it will grant access. If he rejects it, it will be rejected access. And finally, the request will get ended. Then we've already discussed that we had something here. We have name, that is fine. But then we had email templates. I told you in a lot yesterday as well that within email templates you have the information that the manager received, the notification that the requester who requested access will receive, and then a reminder as well. You can also decide when do you want to send this reminder, right? After 1 day of the request being raised, 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, some minutes, some hours. What is the case? You can do that, right? And include access as well. What does that mean? Let's say a user says that I no longer need this request. Does the removal of access also needs to be approved by the manager, right? In some application, in most of the application, you don't need it because obviously if you're having excess, that is not an issue. But if you have more than required access, that is always an issue, right? That is the first example where we are talking about manager approval. If you want, you can have more complex workflows designed as well, in the sense that let's say I want that after my manager, the senior manager should also approve this request on. Only then someone should get access, right? What I will do is after manager approval, I will have manager approval. I'll scroll that from the left, put it here. And then if the manager accepts the request, right? In that case, attach this to the manager approval pane. And then if he also approves, then I'll attach it to grant access, right? Are you able to understand? And in case of the rejection, obviously if the manager rejects the request, it will not go to the senior manager anyways. Now that is just one way of configuring or one capability of Saviynt. If you want, you can also define entitlement owner. See, it is all fine. If I want to create an entitlement, approval workflow only if there is a very high risk entitlement which is involved in the request. What are high risk entitlement which gives you a lot of access, right? Let's say admin user or a super admin user, right? If by mistake I give you access to a, rather than read, I also give you a read access of 2 files. It is not big of an issue, but if I give you admin or super admin access, you can do a lot of damage to the company, right? That is the reason for high risk entitlements. We can add one more level of approval, that even after manager's approval, I will need the entitlement owner. Who is the entitlement owner? Let's say, if you remember, initially we talked about that there are different admin status from different applications. There will be a Salesforce administrator. There will be Office 365 administrator. They are supposed to take care of their application, right? Such people are basically called as application owners. Within those application owners, there is a possibility that certain entitlement is only handled by some people. Just to give you an example, if you look at Google Cloud Platform has a lot of sub-applications within it. You have computation capability. You have storage capability. you have AI capability. And in a company, at an enterprise level, all these capabilities would be run by different people. There will be managers or senior managers who will be taking care of the complete assignments, where there could be 15 to 20 people who are employed. Right. What will happen is, if I want access to GCP, right, there could be an application owner's approval required. But if I need access to a certain application and a certain entitlement within that application, then I might have to raise the request to the entitlement owner. What Saviynt does is it allows you to raise a request to whomsoever is required. My first level is going to my manager. Only if my manager approves it, the entitlement owner will receive the request. And now they can either accept or reject it. But we have also put a criteria that for every entitlement it is not needed. It is only needed if the entitlement that I am requesting is high or very high risk. Now, how to create this kind of workflow? We'll have a look at that. In this one, what we are saying is we start the workflow. Manager approves the request. If he approves the request, then a condition is evaluated. What condition is evaluated? That if entitlement.risk is not equals to null, that means there is an entitlement. There is a risk rating for this entitlement. And the entitlement.risk is greater than 3. Only then this will be condition will be yes. Right. And if it is yes, it will go to excess of. It will go for excess approval task to the entitlement owner. Who is the entitlement owner in this case? Whomsoever is taking care of that sub competency within GCP. Right. And then they'll have to approve or reject it. If they approve it, the excess is granted and the workflow ends. If he doesn't approve it, it is rejected. And obviously it will go to the reject pane, reject excess. Right. And then it will end. What you're trying to play is that how complex do you want to make the workflow depends on the business requirement of that particular entitlement. If it is more complex, you can write your logic here. Entitlement is a different object. Here with an entitlement, or let's say if you talk in terms of database, you have entitlement table, and within entitlement table, you have risk as an attribute, and we are evaluating its value whether it is null or not. And similarly, it also holds an attribute called risk score. If you are saying that the risk again is greater than 3, then we'll have to make sure that the high risk entitlements should have a risk rating of 3 or more attached to them. But you can have a lot of fermentation and combination in workflows. And basically, once you start working on it, you understand that what are the objects that are available. What are the panes which are available from a conceptual perspective, from an interview perspective? These are the questions which are generally asked. Firstly, then usually ask you, whether have you worked on workflows? Then they might ask you, what are workflows? Why are they needed? What kind of workflows are there within Saviynt? Right. How do you configure those workflows? If I want to do, let's say, this logic within workflows, can I do that or not? These are the type of questions that they will ask you. Now let's say I have created a workflow. How will I make sure that this workflow is being used for some applications and not others? As I told you earlier, every application is not that critical that it will be very difficult for us to manage. For most of the applications, such complex workflows are not needed because, let's say, if you are talking about an application such as Yammer within companies is just used for experience sharing. You can write that I've worked on this project. It was really good and stuff like that. It is not very critical information. For such applications, You don't need any approval. You can directly go and request access and you will get it. For some other applications, such as Salesforce, you might need it. For some other applications, you might just need manager approval, but not entitlement owner approval. What we do is whenever we are talking about an application which shares the same, let's say workflow. Let's say for Salesforce and Linux, we are Salesforce and Oracle. We follow the same process that we need manager approval and also entitlement owner approval. If that is the case, what you can do is you can create this workflow. Then you go to security system of that application. In our case, let's say a Salesforce. And then there you can select the workflow from the drop down. If you remember, we created this security system, right? I was telling you that there are three important aspects: security system, endpoint, and connection. Right. And I also told you that security system acts as a container which basically correlates endpoints with connections. Right. Other important point of security system is that it also associates the workflow. Here, if you see, there is an option called as access, add workflow. Right. What it is saying is that whenever a person requests access for this application, which workflow should be followed? We have set sample manager approval. That means that for this application, we only need manager's approval. If the manager approves the request, we will get the access. You can also see that there is something called as access remove workflow. In case there is an application where we need that, even if the person removes his access, a request should be sent to his manager. Then you can have access remove workflow as well. I was giving an example from Oracle. Let's say we created another one, right, based on entitlement. What if I want to configure such a workflow? In that case, what I will do is, rather than choosing this workflow sample manager approval from the drop down, I will choose this one. Let's see. Entitlement owner approve of a flow. This is a sample manager approval workflow. And then you have the second one, which is entitlement owner workflow. You can select either of these. If I select sample manager approval, it will only go to manager. If I choose entitlement owner, it will go to both manager and entitlement owner. Now let's see how this actually works. Let's say if I configured this, and now I also see the risk rating that I was talking about, right? Here you have an option for this particular entitlement type. If I go here, let's see. This is a new request. What I did was I went to AR's screen. I clicked on request access for others. I am accessing access for a new colleague of mine was just joining company. Oh, I'll change. I selected that. This is the person for whom I want to request access for. And then I want to give him access to this application. Or I clicked on the add button. Just like the shopping apps that we use, we click on the add to my bucket. Once you click on add to my bucket on the next screen, you will be asked that along with this application, do you also need access to certain entitlements? In Oracle, it is called as OEBS responsibility. Which responsibility do you want to assign this person? Is he just manager, just web? He should be able to. Is he a manager? Should he be able to only see web reports? Or he's an advanced outbound SS, a application admin, something like that, right? From all those entitlements, you can choose. The person is a supply chain planner and he will be working on ABM intelligence. These two entitlements is deciding basically that he will get access to Oracle. That is fine. His account will get created in Oracle application, But within that application, what he will be able to see is decided by entitlements. These are other two entitlements that we are assigning that person. This is the next screen that you will see. I requested access for the application. I request to entitlements with that. It will ask me for certain comments. I will say, let's say the person who's submitting the request with access required because the person is a new hire and needs for this for development activities. I'm just giving an example. You can write any comments and then you submit the request. Once you submit the request, now what you can do is you can go to a request history. I was telling you the other day that you have a few options here. One is called as a request, home request, history request, approval and task. I was telling you till the time it is not approved by anyone, it is a request. Once it is approved by everyone required, it becomes a task. Right now, our request will be assigned to someone. If you want to see whom it is assigned to, you can click on View Status. In our case, what I can do is because I'm an administrator, I can also go to Request History. And here you can see, this is the request that we just raised for this person. And who has it requested by admin? Payment admin. Who has it been submitted to? It is right now open. If I click on it, I'll get to see whom it has been assigned to. Obviously, we have assigned it. It is the manager approval. The person's manager will receive the request. If you see the assignee, once I click on the request, I will be able to see the assignee. Who is the assignee? Jim, right? Now Jim can either accept the request or reject the request because he is the manager. You can see that these are three separate tasks. One is accept account. The manager is with you getting an Oracle account. That is accept account. But whether he wants or not for you to get that responsibility within Oracle, he can take actions on that separately. He can make sure that you only need actually one access, that is OEBS responsibility, and within that ABM intelligence, but you don't need supply chain planner. I'm just giving you all these examples, right? It might vary, but you can either accept the entire request or partially accept it. I mean, you can reject it as well. Basically, this is from a manager's perspective. This is what the manager will see. Whatever I'm telling you right now is from the end user perspective, right? We have done the configuration and everything, but what is the end user going to see and how are they using Saviynt? This is what we are learning. Save on Saviynt. I was able to request access for one of my colleagues. The request got submitted to the manager. The manager receives this thing which he can accept or reject, right? And why is the manager seeing this request? He's seeing this request because we've actually attached a workflow to this application. Remember, if I would not have attached that workflow to this application, that the request would have been fulfilled by itself directly. Then there would not have been any requirement of a manager to approve this request. Let's say now the manager has taken action. He has accepted the request. You can see if you go to the request history and you check this request ID, the initial one, you will see. Now the status has changed to completed because the manager has already taken an action on it. Now, if you want to search for it, you will be able to see that. Now, as I was telling you now, because the manager has already taken action on this request. Now from request, it will become a task, right? Because from Saviynt perspective, whatever was required has already been completed. Now Saviynt only needs to execute this request. By execute, I mean now. Oracle actually needs to send out a request to Oracle system and get this account created for this user and also attach these entitlements to that account. Right. And to do that, what will Saviynt use? Saviynt will use connection, right? Because if Saviynt wants to talk to any external application, it needs connection to help it do that, right? Yes, no, make. And if you're not understanding, let me know. I remember if Saviynt wants to access any other application now, the connection should be exact. Right. Now let's say that I can see that these requests have now become tasks, which means we have the proper approval to execute this task. You need a trigger. And I was telling you in the last session that there is a job called as provisioning job. I told you very initially in our training as well that whenever you are pushing data to the target application, whenever you want to create a new user on the target application, we call it as provisioning. And whenever we are getting information from the target application into Saviynt, it is called as reconciliation. Right. This time we want to create a new account on this application. And hence we will be using a provisioning job, right? As the name suggests. What you can do is you can click on admin, then you can go to job control panel. And within job control panel, you have a task called as WS Retry job or provisioning job. You can remember it from provisioning job. What you can do is you can click on add new job. And once you click on add new job and you trigger it, you will be able to see that the task status from pending it will go into completed task. And if it is completed, that means the account actually got created on the target application. Now the user will be able to log in into Oracle and will have the required entitlements as well. If you see, what I was trying to explain you very early on in the training was, see, if I would have just going by this P, D, F, you would not have been able to understand that what actually happened behind the scene, because of which the account actually got created. How does running a job actually creates account on the target application? If you remember, I told you that there is something called as a JSON payload. I told you that there is something called as APIs, which allows us to make a request to the target application and hence the account gets created. Right. Do you remember that? I don't remember. I don't know. That is what I have. And I have one doubt now. What? Actually, you said that first we will start for provisioning. We will just establish connection and everything, right? Now we are just creating workflow where we will be doing it in the Saviynt, right? All the configuration that we are making will be within Saviynt itself. And this is part of the configuration. When I mentioned that we need to create endpoint security system and connection, that is the core of Saviynt, right? Or what we do. But apart from that, there are other functionalities within Saviynt as well that we will need to implement. And basically, we want to give the client a running system. For the client, they will not understand what are we doing behind the scenes to make this work. They will only tell me that if someone requests access to Google Cloud Platform, this access request should go to his manager and then to his senior manager, right? Because we know that how to execute it through. We will do it through workflows. And within workflow, we will need manager approval and manager's manager approval workflow, right? Still, I am not clear. What is not clear? My doubt is that suppose if the workflow should be created in Saviynt. Let's try to. What is the question? Who will be asking for this? Actually, one thing is not clear for me. The support person who is accessing the Saviynt. Only they will be creating workflows. Who will be creating the workflows? Actually, who is using Saviynt? They only will be creating workflows and all that. No, they won't be. They will only go and submit requests that I want access to this application. If you join a new company and the manager tells you that go and request access for yourself, you will log into Saviynt yourself, request access to all the applications that you need access for, and that is done. Now the request will reach to your manager. He will approve that request and you will get access to those applications. This is what the end user will see. To make that work, to make sure that the request goes to the manager or to the required stakeholders, the configuration has to be made. And that configuration will be made by the people who implementing Saviynt for the customer. In our case, I am the administrator. I will be doing it. The end user will only request access for a certain application and they want access. That is all. They do not know what is the workflow. They do not understand how the workflow works. It is the administrator's job to configure it in a way where the end result is reached. Now we will see that we have done the assignment of workflow as well. We are just following a similar example. This is fine. Basically, there is another concept called as mapped endpoints. What happens is there could be certain applications. Let's say you have now. If you remember, Microsoft has many tools within its card. Microsoft has an application called as Teams. It has Outlook, it has Office 65. It has PowerPoint, Excel and all that stuff. But if you think from a logical perspective, you will need a Microsoft account to get access to any of these applications. Without that, you cannot access that, right? If I want to access or if I want to request access to Microsoft Teams, Microsoft will first ask me whether you actually have a Microsoft account or not. That is a prerequisite of getting a Teams account. You can only get a Teams account if you have a Microsoft account. That's right. There is a dependency between two applications. We need to have access to one application to get access to the other. Otherwise, we cannot raise it, right? Yes, no, maybe. Yes. The Microsoft account. We must have that all the other applications which is supported by Microsoft we can access, right? There is a concept within Saviynt called as mapped endpoints. What happens is, if you remember, we created this application called as Siebel MAM within Saviynt. Now, within that, we had our endpoint, we have security system, we had connection. If you go to the endpoint, you will see that beside the endpoint details, you have something called as mapped endpoint. If I click on action and I click on set up endpoint mapping, I can basically make another application and a prerequisite for this application. If you remember, if you can see here, we have made Active Directory as a prerequisite for Siebel M&M. I clicked on endpoint mapping, and within endpoint mapping, I chose a security system, Active Directory, endpoint Active Directory, and requestable allow and request. Now within Siebel MMM, if I want to request an entitlement, I will firstly have to have another entitlement before I can have this one. Let's say if I want access to IT administrators. One example that I gave you that I need access to this application. But what if within that application as well, I need access to a certain entitlement? Only then I will be able to request access for some other. Right. Once you've created mapped endpoint, you can actually go to that endpoint details. You can click on other entitlement details and you can add an entitlement map. An entitlement map will allow you to request one access at the same time while you're requesting for the second one. Right now, let's say I chose this one and I check mark dependent task. Whenever I'm going to request application access IT administrators, I will also need to have access to administrators. And only then I can become IT administrators. That is a prerequisite. What will happen is once I will request access to IT administrators, either I can configure it in a way that the access request for administrators automatically gets created. Just to give you an example, let's say you want access to IT administrators, right? And you did not know that there is a prerequisite that I need to be part of the administrators group to become an IT administrators, right? What I will do as let's say, a Saviynt person is I will relate these two entitlements in a way where when someone requests access to IT administrators, they automatically get access to administrators as well, right? Because this is a default rule. You cannot get access to IT administrators if you don't have administrators as a group. You cannot get access to IT administrators. You cannot get access to IT administrators. You cannot get access to IT administrators. I wanted access to IT administrators, but I was not part of administrators group. What I did was, and again, I'm not saying this is happening at runtime. All these things are decided during the design phase itself. When you go to any application owner, you ask them that, buddy, tell me what is your requirement. If someone wants access to your application, how do you want the user to be able to request that access? He will tell you that I want that each owner, each person who wants access to, let's say, Salesforce should also get access. Should his request should go to the manager and then to the senior manager, and only then it will be approved. If someone requests access to administrator role within Salesforce, this request should go to this person and only then it will be approved. Or if someone wants access to IT administrators within Salesforce, he need to have access to administrators group as well within Active Directory. All these are part of requirement gathering phase. Once you have all these requirements ready, only then you actually go ahead and do these configurations that I'm telling you about. Once you make those configurations, the application owner you will send out an email to the application owner saying that our configurations are ready. Can you even have a UAT, right? User acceptance testing. The application owner will come to Saviynt. He will have a call with you and you will show and they will try to use Saviynt in test environment, right? You will have 3 environments: development, test and fraud. The production environment is the one which is actually used in the company. Development and tests are used for, as the name suggests, development purposes and testing purposes. In the test environment, they will try to request access to their application. They will see that if it is going out to the manager or not. They will see whether, when they request access to IT administrators, administrator access is provided to them or not. They will do this entire testing. And once they are happy, they will give you a UAT sign-off. They will tell you that it works the way I want it to, and that is why this is an approval. You can go ahead and implement it in production. Now we will talk about creating new requests. Submit requests for entitlements. I think that is fine. I mean, it is not something that we really need to cater because we have already covered it. You know how to request access for entitlement. You understand that. Basically, they are showing nothing. They are just showing. If you want to request access, how do you do that? How do you go to request application? You choose the application that you want the access to, add it in cart. Choose the entitlements and submit it. We have already seen that. Then a request gets created. If it is approved by the manager, the task gets created. And once you run the provisioning job, the account gets created on the target application. Now please push the facts to build your application for this application and fill out your application for tracking information. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.